Good evening, punters, and welcome to another episode of The Tripod, where we break down every NRL game every week from a punting perspective. This week we will be going through round 15, and it's been a good year for us so far with 6 games still left on the slate. We're still sitting at 63% for the season, so if we said to ourselves at the start of the season it would nearly be impossible, if we can finish the season 60% or higher, that would be a very, very good achievement, and we're on the way to doing that. Jacob, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. You said 6 games. You mean 6 weeks, of course. That's the regular season, and then we get into the finals. And I've heard a few comments this week that the ladder is pretty much a very fair reflection of where everyone's standing they deserve to be, and that people aren't expecting much to change. But this week I put in Winnie's weekly wrap that we discuss around in our group the final key positions. That is minor premiership, that is who gets in the 4 and who gets in the 8, what the odds were and what people thought with this final 6-game stretch run coming up. And we're going to start the pod by actually talking about this quickly because I think it's very relevant. There's some huge games this week, and it's just important to understand really what is at stake for all the best teams in the competition.
It is important, and you talk about it all the time in betting. It's motivation factor, and I mean, I'll pull up the ladder right now, Jacob, and from a motivation standpoint, this is what you want to be looking at down the back stretch of the comp for what teams are motivated to keep that number 1 position, like the Panthers, to get into the top 4, which is going to be an interesting race, and then of course to stay in the top 8 or to get into the top 8 there. So when you're looking at that ladder, Jacob, what do you see?
Okay, so talk about the minor premiership. We're especially interested in this because we gave out on the 29th of June Penrith to win it at $7. They're currently about $1.45. Their toughest remaining game will be against the Eels. I think that's in about 3 weeks.
Correct.
But they could still win the minor premiership even if they lost that game. Their second toughest game remaining this season is actually this week, home to the Sharks. They've got a very nice draw, which is why we liked the odds so much. So that makes, of course, this Storm Eels game that we've got tomorrow night very key because the Storm are just 1 point behind the Panthers. If the Storm lose, and as you guys probably already know, we've given out 3 tips on the Eels so we can tease ahead. That's going to give the Panthers a buffer, almost make them close to uncatchable for the minor premiership to cash our bet.
Yeah, and then I guess that you said it all, like the Storm Eels game is huge for our Panthers minor premiership, but what's also very interesting is I guess the race to the top 4. I think you can pretty much lock in the Panthers, the Storm, and the Eels barring some sort of miracle. But I mean the Roosters, the Raiders, and even the Knights to an extent are fighting over that top 4 spot. How do you see that playing out?
So, of course, top 4 is so critical. You get that shot in week 1 of the finals where if you win, you can get a bye and a home prelim. And even if you lose, you get that second bite at the cherry. And no one, since they've restructured the finals format, has ever won the comp from outside the top 4. And you've got teams like Roosters and Raiders, last year's grand finalists. They both got their eyes on the prize. They're both level on points right now, but the Roosters do have a much superior points differential. Now, these 2 teams play in 2 weeks' time. So I really do believe the winner of that game will get 4th. And Canberra, it's in Canberra. I think they absolutely know they can win. But gun to my head, the Roosters will be getting a lot of key players back. This week they get Rio Hargraves, BMOS. In coming weeks, Tupou, Crichton, Cordner, and Keary will be marginal in that game. I think when all the whips are cracking and the chips are down, I think Roosters would win a game that they really needed. So I believe they'll probably win that one and get 4th. You can't rule out the Knights yet either, just 1 point behind. But I think Newcastle's going to rue losing games like when they lost to North Queensland a few weeks ago or that home loss to the Bulldogs.
Yeah, those ones were brutal for them. And I guess thirdly, the big one is like, who's going to make the top 8 here? And realistically, you look at this, and the Rabbits are 2 games clear of the Tigers and the Seagulls. But so, I mean, the top 8's probably going to stay the same way that it is at the moment. But in saying that, for these teams like the Tigers, like the Seagulls, that are on the outside looking in, it's like these next couple of weeks, this week, next week, is probably going to decide their season, to be honest. So for some of those teams that are just on the cusp of the 8, it's like if they win these early games down the stretch, then they still believe that they can make the 8. But like if you drop 1 or 2 games early, then, I don't know about you, Jacob, but you're probably looking to bet against those teams after dream-crushing losses like that where they can't make the 8 no longer.
Yeah, you want them to still believe they have a chance. I spoke about that last week. It doesn't have to be likely, it just has to be a chance. And look, Manly, due to a really bad plus minus, they're actually effectively 2.5 wins out. So I've heard a lot of comments that the top eight's not going to change, but I just can't rule Manly out yet. Sharks and Rabbitohs, both of them could lose 4 of their last 6. The Sharks are going to be underdogs 4 times in the next 6 weeks. They've got some tough games. We know they're playing Penrith this week. It's going to be a hard one to win. And the Bunnies play Manly this week. So, I mean, if they were to lose that, they'd only have to lose 3 of the last 6. So basically the equation should be Manly looking at it, if we win 5 of our last 6, we can make the finals. Now, that sounds like a tough ask the way they've been playing, but their final 4 games are all against bottom 6 teams. On top of that, Fanua Blake, close to the best prop in the comp, he's going to come back into the team this week or next. And Trbojevic should be back for at least the last couple of games if they're still in contention. So if they are, I believe they could run the table. But you don't get yourself into that position unless you win this week. They win this week and the Sharks go down to Penrith. They're within 1.5 games with 5 games left and the best draw and getting back their best player. In other words, Manly's season is totally alive, at least until they face the Bunnies on the weekend.
You're right, and we did mention that last week in terms of Manly. Like, I think I said they need to probably win 5 of their last 7, and the run home, you're right, Jacob, the last 4 games are definitely winnable games, but they needed to win at least one of those 3 really tough games, starting this week and then Storm next week. But should be an interesting run home to the finals, that's for sure. Let's start off, Jacob. You teased ahead to the Eels Storm. It's the match of the round. The Eels are laying 4 points at home with the total sitting at 35.5. And because you teased ahead, I will let you start this one.
And I actually said to you as well that this is one of my favourite plays, not of the round, but of the season. So you can put up the best bets now if you want, because this was a rare occasion where we gave out our best bets for this game.
We've got one more as well. So
yes, and we've got one more as well, which is
I'll put them up
Parramatta to score over 19.5, right?
I'll read the best bets, then I'll let you break it down. Look, we gave out 3 best bets early because we saw the line moving. Look, we've got 3 early plays. You probably can't get them. And well, you definitely can't get them anymore, but that's why it pays to have the Tripod app. We took the Eels plus 1.5 for the game. That's $1.87 on Bet365. We took the Eels plus half a point in the first half and the second half. And the bet that we're adding today is the Eels team total over 18.5 points at $1.80 on Bet365. Jacob, why don't you break down why we like the Eels so much?
As I was saying, very rare that we would give out plays before Wednesday's pod, but I was staring at these odds on Monday, just could not believe that Parramatta was going to be an underdog for this game, and you can see now why they're not. And even once the lines had shifted, on Monday night I posted in our group and I said, Eels are still minus 1.5, and you still could have got $2 lines. I said, I'd still be jumping on that. And there was definitely pushback. The second anybody sees this Melbourne Storm team with a head-to-head price of $2 or above, they just think it's got to be value. So, look, I'll be the first to tell you, we believe in the Storm and we respect them more than anybody. I looked back through our whole season, and you guys know how many best bets we've had, close to probably 200 best bets in 14 rounds. The last week we bet against the Storm, week 1, against Manly, and that was at Brookvale. And look, the Storm actually beat us in that one, but we have not bet against the Storm for the last 13 rounds. We've been on them plenty of times. We're against them here. And as I said, I think people are seeing that $2, whatever it might be, $2.40, $2.50, and going, the Storm, you've just got to bet the Storm, right? And they're dismissing the injuries because they've dealt with the injuries quite well. But let's just look at it again. Okay, no Cam Smith. You're going to say, oh, but Brandon Smith is great. Yeah, he is great. But the best version of this Storm team is when you got Cameron and Brandon on the field together, where Brandon can play as a loose forward. Missing Cameron Smith in a really tight final style game, you can't replace him. I mean, he's the GOAT. So I don't know why people are kind of dismissing that. Then you look at, well, they beat the Roosters without Cam Smith. So, you know, they'll be fine. But they won that game because the Roosters were really depleted and because their forwards ran riot. They don't have the same forward pack here. Dal Vanuken, calf injury, is out for 6 weeks. Is like an origin and, you know, linchpin of that team, lock forward. And then their best prop, international Jesse Bromwich, suspended at the judiciary. He's not playing either. So that's 2 absolute gun forwards you're missing. Now you can say Tino Fasua-Malawi and Big Nelson come into the starting pack. They're great players. But then you lose the massive effect that they've had with bringing those guys off the bench. You've got you've got Vunivalu is out. You've got Hughes has a groin injury, and while he's been named, I just think You saw Munster re-injure himself when he came back from a knee injury. It would be crazy to risk him. We've seen what's happening with injuries across the comp. The Storm's in a position where, while it's nice to win a minor prem, it's not the be-all, end-all. They want to make sure they're healthy at the right end of the year. And I alluded to it before. Yes, the Storm have beaten the Roosters twice without Munster, and they've beaten the Raiders without Munster. It doesn't mean they don't need Munster, and especially in a game with all the other key playmakers who might be out, he's the kind of guy who can break a game open in a tight one. So I feel like this Storm team that we massively respect, and they always make you earn it, this is a week you want to go against them because they're on a great run of form, but they are nowhere near quite the same side. Now, often as for best bets, if we've got enough good reasons to bet against the team, we will. On top of this, I love Para. So why do I love Para? For one, they're full strength. Ryan Madison maybe close to the pickup of the year. He only got back into the team last week. Everyone seems to have forgotten how well they played the first 7 weeks. And I know what you're all saying. Their form is down in the last month. So let's look a little closer at it. I mean, I thought it was a decent win over the Tigers, double-digit win. They beat the Dogs 18-16. They were up 18-0. They did kind of switch off. They beat the Sharks 14-12. The game was virtually played underwater. I don't really want to read too much into their form. They had to play 5 days later with heavy legs against the Dragons, close to performance of the year, and they lost by 2. I know Para is a lot better than those results. They have no excuses. This game is being played at Wankbest Stadium. They're playing a Storm team that humiliated them not once but twice last year in the finals and in Magic Round by a combined 90-10. If Para loses this game, I'll admit I was wrong. I'll reevaluate them. But I'm not wrong. Para rolls in this one.
Love it, Jacob. I agree with everything that you just said. And just to summarise it, we're getting the better team, I think. We're getting the healthier team, and we're getting them at home and underdogs in some markets. We do love the Eels in this one. Let's move on to Friday. We've got the Panthers laying 8.5 points against the Sharkies. The total sitting at 43.5 points. This should be a pretty exciting game. I mean, the Panthers is just one of those teams, and you mentioned it, Jacob, and maybe I've been a victim to this, but you're getting such big lines against this Panthers side that it's always tempting to go against them. But you're right, they're just playing like they're a team of destiny this year, and to be honest, I think they really want that minor premiership. It's within grasp now, so I do think that they win this one. They're one of the teams out of those top, few, the Roosters, the Storm, the Eels. They're the healthiest team, and they have been for quite some time now. So the chemistry is there for them. But the Sharks are also pretty healthy in this one, so I don't love to sort of go against them necessarily in this one. They're pretty healthy. They've been home for a couple of weeks. And, even though they're sitting 7th on the table, their run home isn't the easiest, so they will take this one pretty seriously. But even so, I think the Panthers win this one. And on top of that, I know it's a nighttime game, 6 p.m. at night, but with the Sharks' defense, the way it's been this season, I mean, you even leaked... they've leaked points all season long, but you even leaked 18 last week to a Titans team that was, below par and was missing a dude for a lot of that game. I think if the Panthers get their own in this one, the Sharks should score a couple of tries as well, but I think the Panthers will be able to score on this Sharks defense.
Yeah, both these sides are a joy to watch in attack. We had overs last time they met about 6 weeks ago. They doubled up the total. There was 80 combined between these two. And we don't need that many in this one. But look, I'll be the first to admit I haven't respected Cronulla enough this year. We've bet against them probably too often. And even last week we bet against them and we lost. But, we went 1-1. Though. Yes, we covered the first half +6. It was tied. It's 12 all. And you have a man sent off with 25 to go. And you concede 18 points in 6 minutes. And you still only lose by 12. And we're getting +10.5. I know we had the right side there. I don't feel confident in the Sharks this week. I don't think they are desperate. You look at the ladder, they're not going to make top 4, and they've just got that buffer in front of top 8, and they know they're going to have to win some games down the stretch, but they do know they don't need to win this one, and I really just don't. The only way the Sharks will win this game is if the Panthers are off the boil on Friday, and I think that their off the boil game was last week. I really don't expect them to be too far below their best. There's such hot competition for spots. Brian To'o could come back into this team, but who are you going to drop? Charlie Staines will be back soon.
You drop Mansour.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You're starting to look at dropping the most experienced, players on the team. That's not an easy decision. Everyone's going to be fighting to keep their spot because they're loving it. And I think Panthers should win this one reasonably comfortably.
We've just got one best bet on the Panthers for now. We are taking the Panthers team total over 25.5 points. That is $1.85. You'll find that one on Ladbrokes and on Neds. Let's get to the Friday night game. It's the Broncos plus 10 points, hosting the Dragons. 43.5 points is the total. Geez, I would have loved to have seen what this line would have been in the preseason lines. The Broncos at Suncorp catching 10 points in this one, but it just goes from bad to worse. I mean, you get flogged in the second half, 30-0 against the Raiders last week. You still, no Payne Haas, no Flegler now, plus the Dragons get back Paul Vaughan. And the thing about this one is the line seems too high, right? The plus 10 seems too high. You're getting a Broncos team that's at Suncorp, traditionally one of the higher, the stronger home fields in the comp. But honestly, it's hard to not only say what I'll get out of the Broncos. I think it's tough to say what you're going to get out of either of these teams this week. I mean, the Broncos could easily shit the bed again. Yes, they could. But the Dragons, although what a performance last week to beat the Eels, but I'm not sure I'm getting that same performance from this Dragons side this week against the Broncos because, Mary coaching his last game, you're up against the Eels, they're a good team. It could be the mother of all letdown spots here coming to play the shitty Broncos. So, look, although I think the Dragons win this one, there's no way that I'm laying double digits.
You're right. I wrote the same note. Who would have ever thought the Dragons could be a double-digit favourite in this season versus anyone, let alone on the road?
Yep.
And if you looked at how the season began, you would have never imagined against Brisbane, but they've both gone in opposite directions since then. And you're right, great performance last week, but they pretty much dedicated the win to Mary. So I get what you're saying, like, can we expect a repeat effort? But I think there is something to be said for that player poll earlier this year, which is the team you would like to beat the most, and team everyone says the Broncos. I think that they will be focused when they come in to, play at Suncorp and roll Brisbane. I think they will. And I know it does feel like line value. I roughly looked at the power ratings and have these teams 10 to 10.5 points apart. But Brisbane's at home, so the line should be under that. But how do you, as I said last week against Canberra, how do you build in that capitulation factor that they just drop their heads? Yeah, and even if it's just for a spell of 10, 15, 20 when things go against them, they just make diabolical mistakes or tackle misses. And now there's cluster injuries. Like, you lost Matt Lodge, you lost Tavita Pangai Jr. These are middle forwards that on their day are great players. And now you lose Payne Haas, the best of them all. Flegler as well, Turpin. Now, Milf comes back, and that's a fall from grace that Brodie Croft is now just dropped on form as well. So that's why I won't play Brisbane. But it is a steep price to pay for Dragons, so we're leaving it alone.
Like, if you knew you were getting full effort out of Brisbane, you'd probably take the plus 10 even with the depleted lineup, but you just don't know anymore. Let's move on to the Saturday games. It's the Titans hosting the Raiders. The Titans are plus 10.5 points. The total sitting at 44.5. It is one of the higher totals of the round, but makes sense because a nice sunny day at the Gold Coast and there should be a few points in this one. And look, I feel bad for the Titans. They've been going so well. I'd been singing their praises. The chemistry was there. The confidence was there. Like a couple of weeks ago, Proctor batting that ball back. Everyone's like excited. They're excited to play. I just really wonder if that Proctor brain explosion last week will just shatter their confidence levels, especially if you have to come out and you get down early against this Raiders team that, has gotten healthier every single week. They had a shocking start to the season. All these injuries. Hodgson's still out, obviously. But now, you're getting dudes like Bateman back. You're a chance at the top 4 after an absolutely disastrous start of the season. And I really do question this Titans mentality after what happened last week. Things were going well, confidence was high, and then, you lose that one. And now you're not only missing Proctor, but you're missing Jai Arrow as well. So, look, I think on a sunny afternoon, I think the Raiders are going to be able to put some points on this Titans side who I think, not necessarily, but I think questionable motivation for this one.
You're right. I think last week is the triple whammy. So the one is the loss itself. It stops their momentum. They were playing good footy and this game was there in the balance and then they just got blitzed. The second one is losing Jairo. He's your best player, in the heart of your forward pack. And the third one is losing Kevin Proctor to suspension, who's one of your forward leaders, your captain. So that really hurts. That's the worst timing to lose two really important forwards against this Raiders team that I'll say right now, based on who's in, and I talked about the guys out for the Storm, this is the best forward pack. And the guys that are out for the Roosters, this is the best forward pack in the competition. So they've incorporated Johnny Bateman, Hudson Young's back, Joe Tapine, Starling back, incorporated into the team at 9. Cody Harawira-Naera getting more match fitness and he's adding a punch off the bench. That this forward pack could just run over the Titans. They're a level above them. We spoke about how important it is that Roosters loss last week opens up a real opportunity for the Raiders. They control their own destiny to make the top 4, which is just a huge opportunity. And you can't let a game like this slip. I know that it's travel involved. I know the Titans have had some good performance recently, but I'm not expecting the Titans to just roll over. But I just think Raiders should be a class above. As you say, in good conditions, they'll win this game by 10 or more.
And we do have 3 best bets on the Raiders for now. We are making ourselves a mechanical Raiders minus 9.5 points. It ends up being $1.80. Put 90% of your stake on the Raiders laying 10.5. That's $2 on Lads and Neds. And we're going to put our remaining 10% stake on the Raiders to win by exactly 10. That's $19 on Sportsbet. We're taking the Raiders to score over 4.5 tries. That's $1.82 on Ladbrokes and on Neds. And we're taking the Raiders minus 1.5 tries in the try handicap. That's $1.80 on Bet365. And if you want to know where to find that one, it is under the score tab on Bet365. We get that question quite a bit. Let's move on to what should be an interesting game. It's the Tigers hosting the Roosters. The Tigers are plus 6.5 points. The total is 42.5. And look, this is an interesting game, and it seems like the line is dropping more and more since the start of the week. This was 8.5, now it's 6.5, and I think punters have basically lost confidence in this Roosters side. And look, I'm not going to blame them. Like, they've taken a huge toll of injuries during the season. It seems to be catching up to them. They got obliterated on the Thursday night game, and that game, the first game of the round, always seems to stick in punters' minds. Now you've lost your halves, and plus Orbison. But look, you can slot Flano right in there, who I thought was better than Lachie Lamb anyway. Plus, you get the long turnaround of the Thursday game. You have a good team off an embarrassing loss, and you get Brett Morris back. But I think more importantly, Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. I think this forward pack has needed that punch, and I think he will provide that. Look, this is not the best time to go against this Tigers side, even though we kind of think that they're definitely not making the 8, we think anyway, and they've been a little bit overrated at times. But it's not the best time to go against them off a kind of lucky, confidence-boosting 1-point win over the Dogs. But in saying that, you get the shortest turnaround off the Sunday night game, and I just think this line's come too far.
You're right. I think the Tigers, keeping their season alive with the field goal, will throw everything at the Roosters. They'll say, look, we've got a really tough draw ahead. We're a couple, wins behind, but we've got to pull some upsets to be any chance. So they haven't given up. They'll do their best, but their best I don't think will be good enough. You kind of nailed it. I mean, Flano, I think this could be a career-altering game, or at least run of games. He could have been the top point scorer and halfback on not just a premiership team, but one of the best premiership teams we've ever seen. That's what it looked like a couple months ago. If he doesn't play well, he could be a reserve grader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's been put on notice with Lachie Lamb coming in, but now the rolled ankle gives him a chance. But Sam Walker, who is this prodigy, I think he must be 18 to be eligible to be picked. He's turned 18 this year. Australian schoolboys 7, they say next superstar. He's knocking on the door as well. So, he's going to have a huge game. Keary out. Who's it? Drew Hutchinson in the halves as well. Look, the halves, you could argue Tigers obviously has way more experience in Benji and Brooks. But you look at that pack, what Waerea-Hargreaves adds. Now it's the 1-2 punch of him and TKO. They've still got a fair bit of depth there. And that back 5 is just, I think, too much class. They've resisted the urge to bring back Sonny Bill Williams, but they've still got they'll be too good for the Tigers. They still have their eyes on top 4 as well, and they're going to effectively end the West Tigers season this weekend.
We do think so. We're taking 2 best bets on the Roosters. The first one is a mechanical Roosters laying 5.5 points. It ends up being $1.80. 94% of your stake on the Roosters minus 6 at $1.91 on Bet365. And your remaining 6% stake on the Roosters to win by exactly 6 at $17 on Bet365 as well. We're also going to take the Roosters laying 3.5 points in the second half. That is $1.85 on Ladbrokes and on Neds. Let's move on to the Saturday night game. It's the Rabbits hosting Manly. The Rabbits are 7.5 point favourites. The total is 43.5 points. And this is a huge game for top 8 implications. I mean, I think you said it, Jacob. I mean, if Manly loses this game and then, they've got the Storm next week and then an easy run. They're probably toast for the top 8 here. But really interesting kind of game. I mean, the Rabbits, are still in the top 8. They're 2 games clear, but they were not their best last week, that's for sure. And they probably deserve to lose, to be fair. But pulling out a 1-point win there with a come from behind in the last few minutes, that is the mother of all confidence-boosting wins for this Rabbitohs side. And on the flip side, it's kind of the opposite for this Manly team. It's a gut-wrenching loss. Once again, you lose in the last 6 or 7 minutes. And, that could possibly be the difference between them making the 8 or not. Like you said, they probably do need to win 5 of their last 6. Their last 4 are pretty easy, but they need to win this one too. And look, I thought that last week might be the dream crusher for the Sea Eagles, but they might just give it one more week for this one. So although, I think the Rabbits win this one, and I think the Rabbits definitely show up, probably too many points to lay where there's probably a greater than 50% chance that the Sea Eagles aren't coming into this one deflated.
I think this is the Sea Eagles grand final, and I felt horrible for them that they didn't win last week. I felt they deserved it. It was heroic with all the players that were out, or just epitomised by Joel Thompson playing with his bloody tongue bitten in half, basically, and a lot of adversity against them. We talked about that on Sunday's recap. And even look back to they threw a winning pass against the Eels and it was called forward, or the no call for a penalty against the Knights a few weeks ago when they lost by 2. They've had a rough season. It's not over yet, but they do have to win this game. You don't want to bet against a team that has to win. If they end up losing this game by 10 or more, you're probably just going to say that Knights game took it out of them. But I hope for them, I'm kind of rooting for Manly to make noise because I just know what they're capable of, and I hope that they can take some positives out of that they've got an incredibly tough team. They did so well to put themselves in a position to win, even though they fell short. Now, for the Rabbits, you're right, they were very poor last week in several areas, but to still win, I just feel we haven't seen the best of the Bunnies in 2020 yet, and I don't want to go against them this week in case it is maybe their best or one of their best performances.
So we're passing the game. We're moving on to the Sunday games. The early one is the Bulldogs hosting the Warriors. The Doggies are plus 3.5 points, with the total sitting at 43.5 points. Now, sometimes games look too easy, and sometimes they are. And maybe this is the case with this one. It's tough to kind of say what I'm going to... I mean, a lot of people think it's tough to say what you're going to get out of the Dogs in this one. You have a pretty brutal loss on Sunday night. So it's do you bounce back from that, or are you absolutely deflated? But, I do think that looking at this Bulldogs team since round 10, they have had one blowout game, and that was against the Storm. Every single other game, they've played very, very tough. And same with the Warriors, to be honest. In the last month and a half, the Warriors have played everyone very tough. But in saying that, I think these rosters are fairly similar. And if there's not questionable motivation, but if both of these teams show up, I'm getting a fairly similar Bulldogs team at home that's catching points. It seems obvious to me, so that's why we're on the Dogs.
Yeah, they get back Will Hopewadi as well. They do lose Dylan Napa. For the life of me, though, Watene Zalesniak's been dropped. I don't know what he's done wrong. I mean, you're telling me they couldn't have Hopper in the centres instead of Holland or Laffey, and then you could have Watene Zalesniak on the wing or fullback, depending on where you slot Meaney. That's still a possibility because he's in the reserves. But look, you can call last week a deflating loss when they did lead 28-22 and then ended up losing by a field goal to the Tigers, as we know. But when the bar is so low, when you're the Dogs, really all you're trying to do is get that elusive win each week. And I think this team's goal is probably to not get the spoon. And they're looking at the Broncos, one win ahead of them. They're just trying to, get that win, get back above Brisbane. They've got the better points differential. And I think that you're right. They've gone under the radar with their form. Everyone's giving New Zealand a lot of praise for pulling a couple of upsets. New Zealand upset Sea Eagles and they upset the Tigers. Well, the Dogs came within a whisker of upsetting the Tigers and within a whisker of upsetting the Eels, as well as beating the Knights. Yeah. So you're right. So they're both playing pretty tough footy, not flashy. I mean, my concern, I do love the Dogs as well, catching points here. My concern is Foran looks a bit like he twisted his ankle last week, and it's this guy gets injured enough in games without carrying injuries into a game. I will also say, the Warriors are without one of my favourite new young gun forwards, Eli Katoa, so he's not playing, and he's been really good for them. And look, I give them all the credit in the world for the way they've played. Like last week, not capitulating against Penrith, fighting back in that game. And people are saying how the bubble might be a benefit to them because they're getting this like camaraderie and everyone's coming together. I won't even disrespect the Warriors by trying to say they're getting an advantage out of this. I think nothing that's happened to them this year outweighs all the adversity. So I take my hat off to them. But I think they're getting probably too much love in the marketplace. I don't think they should be favoured by this many points at all.
We don't, and we've got 4 best bets on the doggies. We're taking a mechanical Bulldogs +4. I'm not going to go through all these mechanical ones here. You can see them on the screen. We're taking the mechanical Bulldogs +4 for the game at $1.88. We're going to take a mechanical Bulldogs +2 in the first half. It ends up being $1.84. We're going to take the Bulldogs +2.5 points in the second half. That's $1.82 on Sportsbet. And the last one is the Warriors not to score 3 unanswered tries. That is $1.87 on Bet365. And we move on to the final game of round 15. It's the Knights hosting the Cowboys. The Knights are laying 9.5 points. The total is 44.5. Now the line, it does seem high in this one, getting close towards double digits. But honestly, I really do think this is a slam dunk win for the Knights. I think there's absolutely no way that they lose this game. All the things are pointing towards a Knights win here. You get the lucky win over Manly to keep you not only alive for the 8, now alive for the top 4. So that's a huge confidence-boosting win for this Knights team, and they're seeing teams like, the Roosters ahead of them lose games. So they've still got hope for the top 4 here. On the flip side, you have a Cowboys side that, just has an absolutely brutal loss against the Rabbits where they should have won that game. They'll be lamenting that one. And like I've said, there's certain shitty teams where it's tough. Like most shitty teams, it's tough to get up for multiple games in a row. I mean, the Dogs to an extent, but certainly the Warriors have showed that. The Cowboys have not showed me that they can string together multiple good performances all year long. Now you have to go from, one of the stronger home fields in Townsville to one of the stronger home fields in Newcastle. And the Cowboys have definitely been way better at home than they've been away this season. I think the Knights could roll in this one.
And speaking of going from Townsville to Newcastle and how good the Cowboys have been at home, the Cowboys beat the Knights in Townsville, and the Knights are probably still angry about that. So you can factor in revenge spot. Like revenge spot's not as simple as whoever lost last is going to be more hungry. But when it was an upset, or even if it's two teams that consider themselves even, if the other team beat you, like you want to get them back. And in this case, the Knights definitely feel they owe the Cowboys one. I don't think they'll be happy with their win last week because they scored 4 tries in a row. They got up 20-12. Manly was beat up and depleted, and they didn't carry on with it, and they nearly lost the game. It's unfortunate they lose Daniel Saifiti. He only just came back from a knee injury. He's got another knee trouble. But as we said at the start of this pod, they're still in calculations for top 4. They're 1 point behind the Roosters and the Raiders. So you'll say, what's the odds they're going to leapfrog them both? But the Roosters and Raiders play each other, as I said before. So you know that, there is an opportunity if you're good enough. And the Knights have some tough games. I don't think they'll make the 4, but they're certainly in the hunt for it. And I agree that they should definitely be too good. But I will say, positive signs for the Cowboys. I think they're a bit like some of those other bottom 4 teams in that losing isn't that deflating because they've been doing a lot of that recently. I think that they just approach each week as can we win this game? And Michael Morgan back and he played really well. Drinkwater back as well. The pack is as strong as it's been all year with all the personnel that's available. While they threw away that game last week, I think if they apply themselves on this road trip on a Sunday Arvo footy game on Channel 9, which 2 weeks ago was at the Gold Coast and they got embarrassed, I think they know that they need to put in a big performance to avoid the same. And I think that they'll make the Knights earn it, put it this way. But the form of a guy like Kalen Ponga, the home advantage, and the more at stake and slightly better team for the Knights gives me confidence they should win the game for sure.
Definitely, and I guess another thing is, if the Cowboys find themselves down at halftime, especially by a margin, I think there is a chance that they can fold. That's why we just have the one best bet on this game. It is the Knights halftime, full-time. That one you'll find at $1.80 on Bet365. Like I said, if the Knights get up in this one, I think there is a chance that the Dogs could fold, especially away from home. And that's going to do it, guys, for the round 15 preview. A few more best bets today than we've had in previous weeks, but we did like a few more games this week. So look, good luck on the punt this weekend, guys, and we will catch you on Sunday night for a recap of round 15. See you then.
Lego.